everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm sitting here with Johanna Basford's World of Flowers, and I've got my Black Widows over here, and you all know we have the new dragon set ready to come out here very soon, and so I'm very excited about that. So I wanted to bring you a video where I was using my Black Widows, and this video is going to be a bit of a tutorial. Today I'm going to talk about choosing your colors and why your highlights and your shadows, or your lightest and your darkest colors, really matter when you're choosing your colors for any object on a coloring page. Today we're going to color a flower, and so I'm going to demonstrate that on a flower in this coloring book. And I've got 3 colors here that I've already chosen. I may bring in other colors. I don't know yet. Y'all know, if you've been watching me for quite some time, you know that I usually always start out with 3 colors, but if I feel like I need to bring in more colors, I will. And if you have this book and you've got your Black Widow pencils, I would love for you to follow along. I've done several video tutorials in the past where I've used World of Flowers and my Black Widows. I will make sure 1 or 2 of those is linked in the upper right hand corner, or even possibly my playlist for all of the Black Widow tutorials. If you've been watching my channel for quite some time, you know that about 1.5 years ago, with the release of the last set, the Monarch set, I put all 144 pencils into color family order. I'll link that in the upper right hand corner if you've not yet seen that and you want to put your pencils in color family order. Everybody is asking me if I'm going to be adding the new set into that previous color order, and yes, I am. I'm actually very excited about it, and I'll be swatching them all out in a video so y'all can follow along, and I'm probably going to make a special swatch chart for it so that we could fit all 180 colors. And it may be front and back, I don't know. We'll have to see what I end up coming up with, but I will probably have a special swatch chart available in my Etsy store. I might even decide to take my actual swatch chart after everything is all swatched out and everything, and take pictures of that and put that into my Etsy store as well, for those of you that would like to have that because you are just not into the swatching thing. But I really enjoy swatching my pencils. It is really relaxing to me. I love putting them in color family order, so you can look forward to that. If you check the description box down below, I will always have links down there for everything that you've seen in any of my videos, as well as my email list, my Etsy store, and my Facebook group, as well as my Patreon if you would like to support me there. So for this video, we're going to be working on this page. So if you have this book and you've got your Black Widow pencils, go ahead and grab them if you want to follow along. I really liked this flower, and so I thought this flower would be a really good place to start. This flower is really going to help me show you exactly why it matters so much when you're choosing your colors. This here is the actual swatch when I did the previous color order of all 144 pencils in the Black Widow set. And this is the video that I will make sure that is linked in the upper right hand corner if you want to go ahead and put your colors in color family order just in your case for now. Before we get the dragon set and add those in, I would probably hold off on swatching them because I am going to be adding those other colors in, and so this will all change very soon here. But as long as you have them inside your case and they're in order, you'll be able to swap them around, and it'll make it much easier to follow along with that video and be able to just pull them out and swatch them after you're able to come back and take all 36 new colors and slide them into their places in your pencil case. Okay, so let's talk a little bit first about how to choose your colors. So I've already chosen some colors because I wanted to just save a little bit of time in the video, because I know this video is probably going to go on for quite a bit and take a little while to film. So I've chosen 3 colors here, and I have deep purple and light pink and pastel purple. So the deep purple is going to be, let me go ahead and show them to you this way so that you could see the difference in the colors. But the deep purple is going to be my color that I'm using for shadows. My pastel purple is going to be my midtone. And then I have the light pink for my highlight. So let me go ahead and show you these colors here on the swatch chart. So here's the pastel purple, here's the deep purple, and then here is the light pink. So you can see when looking at these colors that they all contrast from one another a little bit. So you could see that I picked a purple here, a color that had purple and pink in it. This one here called pastel purple. And then I went all the way down here to the light pink and went with a straight pink. And then this deep purple is really dark and vibrant, and this is going to be wonderful to really create those shadows and that depth that we want in our flower and really make those petals look like they are laying over one another or laying behind another petal. Now, when I'm picking my colors, my original 3 colors, I always start with 3 colors and then I'll come in and I'll add more colors in after I start laying the colors down on the object on my coloring page. I will decide whether or not I need to add more colors to change it up a little bit, or if I need something a little bit darker to create a little bit more depth. So you can see by looking at the deep purple, the pastel purple, and the light pink that there is a great difference in the values of each one of these colors. And then when I decided to pick my pastel purple and my light pink, I wanted to make sure that those were a little bit contrasting from one another, but still sort of in the same color family, because if you look at this one, you could tell that it still does have pink in it. And then I just went to this straight up pink. And this color is really bright and vibrant and beautiful and still very pastel-y. And so I think when I lay these 3 colors down on my flower, I think that they're really going to make a huge difference. The first thing I want to show you is the difference between just straight coloring or really taking the time to choose your colors and add in the highlights and the darkest colors in your midtone, and how the difference in the colors is going to really change what your object on your coloring page looks like dramatically. So I've got my light pink, I've got a nice sharp lead, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to lay this color down. And I'm going to fill this entire petal with just this color. Now, if you go back to when we were kids and we originally learned to color, we didn't blend our colors together or do anything like that, but now we're adults and we kind of want to make our coloring have a whole lot of depth and dimension and just really pop off the page, right? At least I know I do. And the highlight color is always the most important to me because I really want anything that I'm coloring to really just pop off the page. This would be just straight coloring. So if I came around and I just did this to all of the petals and I just straight colored them, they would still be pretty, right? I still have color down on the paper, but everything still looks very flat. Now, years ago when we were kids and we learned to color, this would be totally fine. I mean, it is still totally fine. And if you want to color like this and just relax, or do this with a darker color just so that you could actually see the color, then that is fine too. If I wanted to come in and I just wanted to get maybe, let's say, the pastel purple, and I really wanted these colors to really stand out, but I just wanted to sit and relax and I just wanted to color, I could take the pastel purple and I could just straight color, and look how pretty that is. I mean, I still have color down on the paper, and I could even add a couple layers and I could darken this up quite a bit, and I could do the entire flower like this if I wanted to, right? And a lot of people do color like this, and that is totally fine. Sometimes we just want to sit down and just color and do it in a therapeutic way to where we could just sit down and just relax and get the color down on the page. And then if you did this, maybe later on, you want to come back and decide, I want to go back and I really want to add some dimension and some depth to that flower that I colored with just one color. So you could leave it like this if you wanted to, or you can come back later when you really just want to experiment with your colored pencils and really learn how to add all that extra depth and dimension. You can come back later and you can do that at a later time. Some of us really do need that time where we just sit down and we just want to lay the color down on the page. We don't want to have to worry and focus on adding all the depth and the dimension and really being super, super creative. We just want to get that color laid down on the paper. Maybe we're having a bad day and we just want to use coloring as, you know, something that is therapeutic and really relaxing. So if that was the case, I would just go and do the entire page like that, because you could always come back later and you could add all that depth and dimension and really make every object on your coloring page really pop that much more. So let's go ahead and get back to this one, because I want to show you the difference that it makes when you start coming in with these other colors. Now you could see by looking at both of these that they are just very, very flat. There's no depth, there's no dimension, there's no highlight that's really just popping off the page. And you really need at least 3 colors to be able to create that. And then you really need to make sure you have quite a big difference between the values in those colors. And that's why I chose the colors that I chose. So now I'm going to take my mid-tone and I'm just going to start adding some of this color. Flowers are one of the best ways to learn how to color anything on any coloring page, because you have all of these petals and they're all laying to the top or laying to the bottom, and they're just kind of layering over one another. So flowers are one of the best things that you can learn on when you're trying to learn how to create all the depth and the dimension and everything else, because you could apply whatever you learned from coloring flowers to any other object on the coloring page. And especially when you've got one object laying over the other, the same idea would still apply, no matter what the object is. So I am just blending some of this pastel purple in here. And of course, I still want a lot of that highlight there, so I'm trying to focus on not going too much over where I have that light pink laid. And because these two colors have a little bit of a contrast, one is a purpley pink, and then the other one is just a straight up pink, but a very pastel pretty pink. They are going to look really good together. And you could see how they're blending together really, really nicely. And over here I've got this petal that is actually laying over this one. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to lay more of the color in that area. Just because when I get more of the color laid down, I want to be able to create this separation here between this petal and this one. And I want this petal to look as though it is laying under this petal here. And then over here I've got this same petal, but it's laying over this petal. So right here where their two are meeting, I want to make sure I get a little bit of my darker color right in that area. And then over here, this one is laying behind, so I want some more of my mid-tone in there. And I'm still going to be coming back with my darkest color, or the color that I want to use for shadows. And I'm making sure that I pull this mid-tone out quite a bit, still leaving room for where I already had laid down that highlight color. But I'm going to want to be able to come back in here and lay the color that I'm using for shadows, my deep purple, right over the top of that. So over here, where I've got this petal laying to the top, I'm going to come in here and lay quite a bit of this color here as well. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm laying the colors down in different places on each one of these petals, because I don't want any of my petals to really look exactly the same. And then down in here where I've got these areas here, I'm going to lay a layer of this color. These are actually the petals that are laying underneath the other petals. So I'm just adding this color in here just to create that first initial layer. And then I'm going to be coming back with my shadow color to lay that right over the top of that to create all that extra depth, to make these little spaces here look like they are actually laying under these other petals that would be laying to the top. You can tell that already it has made a difference between the two colors just being blended into one another. And there's a little bit of that contrast between the colors to where it really makes each one of these colors stand out. Now remember, we only have a couple layers laid down here. So if I wanted to come back with my highlight color and lay down another layer, and come back with my mid-tone and lay down another layer, I could definitely do that before I came in and laid down my darkest tone. But I'm going to go ahead and grab my deep purple right now. And I am going to start adding a little bit of depth with this. And I want you to really watch the difference that this makes, because you're probably going to be blown away with what it actually does to the flower, even with just having a couple layers down here of the highlight and the midtone. So if I come in with this color, because this color has such a difference in value and it's so much darker than my midtone or my highlight, it's really going to start creating a whole lot of depth with this flower. Now you could tell by looking at this flower and looking at this flower that they do look quite different. And remember, we just had the one color here and we just straight colored. And this one, we've got a blend of the two different colors where we still have that highlight color to really create that pop. And so now when I come back and I start adding this darkest color, you are gonna see a huge difference. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over each one of these little spaces right in here, and I'm going to make these look like they are really standing out and just give it the look that these are actually the petals that are underneath these other petals. So with my darkest color, I am going to come in here and I'm just going to start doing a little bit of, you know, what I like to do when I am coloring a flower. And a lot of times I'll use the artwork in the flower. Especially in this book, I love how Johanna puts in the extra lines, and she gives you a little bit of a guide to where you can use those lines to create quite a bit of depth. She's got some dots down here, and I like to take my darkest color and just go over that just a little bit. And I'm doing this very, very softly. But this just helps to create a little bit of depth and dimension on your flower and make it look a little bit more realistic. But you can see now, just by doing that and doing this here, that I'm already starting to take away that look of this flower just looking a little bit flat. I like to just come up here and add a little bit of this color, or my darkest color, whatever color I'm using for my darkest shade. And I just love to use Johanna's artwork as a guide to really be able to create that extra bit of depth. So if you look at this petal already compared to the other petals, just by being a little bit extra creative and using my darkest color to come in here and enhance Johanna's original artwork and just use those lines as a guide, it really has already made a difference. I'm just coming back in here and I'm laying more of the color. Okay, so I'm going to use the same color, and right over here where I've got this right up against the center of the flower, I just want to add more of this shadow color in here. But I want to keep these over here much, much darker, because I just feel like that is going to create quite a bit more depth and really make these look like they are laying behind this other petal. After I get a lot of this color laid down on the page, I may even come in with a darker color or even another contrasting color to enhance this even more. And I always come over here where I've got this petal laying behind this one, and I want to make sure I have at least a couple layers here of the darkest color, because everywhere where I have another petal, I want to make sure that I'm creating the look that this petal is laying behind the other petal. And I'm going to come back in here and just add a little bit more color. So then over here, this petal too is laying behind this other petal. And so I'm going to come in here and blend some of this darkest shade into my midtone. And then of course over here where I'm bringing this darkest color into right here where I've got these petals that are laying underneath these other petals, I want to make sure I don't use as hard pressure over here, because I want this color to look different than what I have over here. So then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to do the same thing that I did initially on the other petal. I try to sometimes make them look just a little bit different, and sometimes I'll even add my own lines. So I have done that same thing, or that same technique, all around the entire flower. You can see already we've got a really good base. just using those three colors. And we've already started to create a whole lot of depth and dimension in this flower. But it's not done because we still need to come back and we need to pile on those layers and possibly add in another color somewhere or create a little bit more contrast. And I'll see what happens as I continue to lay some of the color down. I want to come back with my pastel purple, which was my mid-tone, and I'm going to go around this flower and I am just going to start adding a little bit more of this color, and I want to spread out everywhere that I just laid that darker color. And the two colors together are going to look really pretty. So as I come around here and pull these colors through and blend them in just a little bit, you can see that I'm still leaving a lot of space where I had that light pink, because this is going to help my flower to really stand out. And I really want those highlighted areas to really pop a lot. And then over here where I've got a lot of the darker shade, and I can see that this petal is laying behind the other petals, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to blend out some of that darker color, and I'm just going to leave a very little bit of space here on this petal for my lightest color. And I'm going to come around and I'm going to do this to the entire flower. So you can see as I come around and I continue to do this, how it is just sort of spreading that darkest color out, and it's blending a lot of this color right into the other colors. I'm going to do this to the entire flower, and I'm going to go ahead and speed this up so you could see it a little bit faster, because a lot of times when you can see it coming together a little bit faster at speed on video, it really helps you to see a whole lot more the difference in what the colors are making as they go down on the paper. Okay, so I have spread the color out all over the place around the whole entire flower. And if you look at this flower and you look at this flower, you could see the huge difference that all three of these colors together have made. So we've just got the straight coloring here, and then here we have a whole lot of added depth and dimension. And we are still not done because we can make this look a whole lot better by coming back and adding even more color. And over here where I've got these petals laying on top of this petal, I want to make sure that I come in here and I really enhance that and make it look much more dramatic than that, and really give this depth and dimension and make it stand out so much more than it already does. So I'm going to come back with my deep purple, and I'm going to come around, and everywhere where I have one petal laying behind the other, I'm going to add another layer of this and really make this come to life. And I'm going to speed it up to music as I do that. Quite a few layers laying down here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to start blending some of this out with my light pink. And to do that, I'm just going to go in a circular motion. Now look what a difference that makes, and it just brings all the colors together, it spreads them out, and it just really makes it look pretty. And you could see that it's not getting rid of any of those lines that I added in there. It's just going right over them, and it's bringing all of those colors together. And I see quite a few spaces that I missed where I've got some overlapping petals like in here, but I'm going to come back and fix that. And I have an idea too for another color, because I want to come back and add a little bit more depth to this. And over here I probably need to pull this darkest color out just a little bit. Now look up here how that just really brings all of this together just by going over that, and then it still leaves that little bit of highlight right there that I wanted to keep, and it just kind of blends all of those colors together so beautifully. And this is not my final step. I'm not burnishing all of the colors together yet. I'm just laying a layer down of this lightest pink over all of the petals just to bring everything together that I have already done. You can see just by using Johanna's natural artwork where she drew in those lines, I used those as a guide, and it just helped me to really add all that extra depth and dimension and make it look a little bit more realistic, right along with making sure that there was a difference in the values of my colors and making the right color choices. It just really helped to bring everything together. So I have enough of that color down, and I want to come back and I want to finish this up just by adding a little bit more to it. Of course, I still have to do the center of the flower. So I'm going to come back with my mid-tone, and I'm just going to go over this and add a little bit more of my mid-tone and spread out some of these colors. Now how much this makes a difference between this one and this one. So you could see our straight coloring, and then you could see the one we put a whole lot more work into. You could see the difference in the contrast of some of the colors. You could see how I used Johanna's original artwork, and I used her lines as a guide to just add a little bit more depth and just be a little bit more creative. Looking at this, I'm thinking that it does not have enough depth, because I can really make this pop out and really stand out a whole lot more. A lot of you are probably looking at it like, oh, that looks done. It looks fantastic. Well, when I look at it, I always tell myself, when you think you're done, add another layer. Because there's a lot of times when you can look at something and you think, oh, it's done. But if you add another layer, you can make some really dramatic changes. So I have my swatch chart again. And so my darkest color that I was using was this deep purple. And I'm coming over here where I've got these even darker purples over here. This one's called deep purple, but it still has a lot of pink in it. And so I want to add some purple. And so I think I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add some eggplant. I was going to go with space, but I think that's too much. So I'm going to try eggplant first. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to try to add a little bit more depth to this flower. I'm going to use the eggplant to do that. And we are going to see what we come up with. Quite a bit of color laid down on this page, and you could see how dramatically that changed it just by coming in and adding that eggplant, because now we've got some pinky purple, some pink, and some much deeper purple, and they just all come together beautifully. And so now I'm just going to come over and I'm going to go over it with one last layer of this light pink to really just bring out those highlighted areas and make them pop. And this is also going to help to burnish all of these colors together. And you can see it's still going to keep all those lines and everything that I drew in there to create the extra depth and dimension. It's going to keep all of those in there. It's just going to bring them all together and make it look much smoother. And then to finish off the flower, we're just going to do the center. I've got this gorgeous light bronze color, and then I've got cinnamon to add a little bit of some shadows. And then I think I'm going to come back over and lay some stickles over them, because y'all know how much I love my stickles anytime I am doing flowers. But this light bronze color is a gorgeous color. And look how it just adds to this flower. And I did go and get some of that purple here in the center, but it really doesn't bother me that much. I just go right over it. And once I lay the stickles over here, you won't even be able to tell. So let me come over and add a little bit of this cinnamon in here just to give it a little bit of depth. And I'm not really going to pay a whole lot of attention to all the little individual pieces here in the center of the flower. I just want to make sure I'm adding just a little bit of depth to this so that it doesn't look flat. And I want to make sure that beautiful yellow color, or what was that, light bronze, I want to make sure that that is really still standing out. And so I'm going to go over that with another layer and just bring all these colors together. Look how pretty that color is. And I'm going to leave the very center just a little bit lighter. I might need something a little bit darker. So this color is called Mud, and it is just a little bit darker. And so I'm going to add just a little bit more of a shadow in here. I think that looks much better. And then I'll leave the other side just a little bit lighter and maybe come in and add a little bit of this light bronze again. And then to really add some depth, I'm going to grab my stickles and I'm going to go over that whole thing. Okay, so I have two of my favorite colors for my stickles. I've got Sunburst here and I've got Mermaid Tail. And I think I want to go ahead and add a little bit of the Mermaid Tail to the flower as well. So I'm going to do that first. And then I'll come in and I'll do the center because I don't want to get my hands in it. But when you're laying down the stickles, you just want to sort of drag it. And I don't want a whole lot of the stickles on the petals, just enough to add a little bit of bling. And I'm just going to kind of spread it around. Our flower is done, and you can see now the difference that it makes when you put a little bit of extra work into an object on your coloring page rather than just straight coloring. And of course, we all need to just straight color sometimes and use it as a therapeutic type of coloring, but sometimes we want to come back and add a whole lot of extra into whatever it is we're coloring. But you could see the huge difference between this one that was just straight coloring and I just laid down some color, and then this one where I was much more careful in choosing my colors, making sure that my colors had a very big difference in values. I came back and I added another darker color to give it a lot more depth and dimension, and then I even came back and added my stickles. And you could see here in the center where I added the stickles, I only used the stickles on the outer part of the center, and I left a little bit in the center where I didn't go over it at all, because I think that when you do that with the stickles, it's kind of like a little trick where it just really elevates it and makes it pop quite a bit more. So I just really like doing that, especially on flowers. And then I added a little bit of the stickles on the outer part of the flower too, and I really love the way that it turned out. If you do follow this tutorial, please do share your coloring pages in my Facebook group if you belong to my Facebook group. If you don't already, you will find a link down in the description box below and you can come join us. We have about 6,400 members now, and the group just continues to grow, and it is a wonderful, positive, really supportive community. So come join us if you're not already there, and I will see you in the next video. Happy coloring. Bye.